My name is Dan, and I'm going to present to you a system I created called Web Widgets. And this is a framework for building do-it-yourself web apps for individuals and small groups. Widgets really started from this question about how do I live my best life? If you go to the internet, if you go to the library, you will find dozens and dozens of books and systems documents about how to improve all different areas of your life. It can be productivity, it can be language learning, it can be organization, fitness, dieting, finance. All of these things have gurus and coaches and educators who have built systems to help you improve these various areas. And I want to talk about the structure of these systems. So a typical life improvement system will have a set of concepts, and this is the science, the motivation, the research behind the idea, the logical structure of the idea. Then it has some activities that you're supposed to do to get the benefit of the idea. So the activities are how the system influences your behavior. And there's one additional piece of this puzzle, which is this central piece of information management. When you're performing the activities, you're not carrying the book around that tells you how you're supposed to do the activities. Instead, you're interacting with some kind of information management system that is guiding you and directing you about how to do the activities, how often to do them, how intensively to do them, all these different aspects. It's very important to track the activities, to monitor, control the activities, to make sure you're doing it the right way to implement the system correctly. If you do this the wrong way, you're not going to get the benefit. Either you're going to potentially do too much, which might result in burnout or overtraining, or you do too little, which obviously means you're not going to get enough improvement. And widgets are really about this central piece here, the information management layer that goes into all of these life improvement systems. Just to give you some concrete examples of what I'm talking about, in the fitness world, people talk about training plans that tell you how far to run, how often to run, how much weight to lift, that kind of thing. There are diet plans where you consume a certain number of carbs, a certain number of calories. Maybe you avoid a certain type of food 5 days out of the week. A lot of therapists and psychologists use mood tracking software for their patients, where the patients have to make some notes about how they're feeling, if they're feeling anxious, if they're feeling stressed out, or whatever, and they try to monitor that. There are obviously finance tracking tools where you monitor your savings, your income, your taxes, your expenses. In CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, there's actually an interesting part of it is these worksheets that they give you that you fill out and you work through. And as you fill out the worksheet, you hopefully get some insight into cognitive errors that you're making. And of course, in productivity worlds, there's lots of things like to-do lists and task lists and project management systems. Now, one thing you might say is, okay, sure, we want to do these life improvement strategies, but we're just going to take some off-the-shelf software and implement that, right? If you go to the App Store, you go to the internet, you will find lots and lots of monitoring systems and tracking tools and apps like that. And there's actually a lot to say here, but the main issue with that is that one size does not fit all. Everyone has a unique set of interests, constraints, work habits, and you need to get a system that very closely fits your specific style, your specific needs, your specific interests. A lot of these apps will have either way too many features, meaning that it's complicated and bloated, or they won't have enough features, meaning that it doesn't do the kinds of things you want it to do. So it's much better to build your own information management tools. And that's what a widget is. So a widget is a framework for a simplified, streamlined framework for building web apps. It makes it very easy to do. You can build customized tools for yourselves or small groups, maybe your family. And now I'm going to talk about what makes it so simple and streamlined. Well, here's the way it works. This is a little bit of the technical details. All of the widget logic runs in the browser. So you create one of these widgets. It's all client-side code, JavaScript. All of the data is stored in a single SQLite file. When the page loads, the server takes the entire database and just sends it to your browser. And that, depending on how big the database is, that could take a while, a second or two. But then, once you have all the data in your browser, all of the subsequent updates are super, super fast, basically instantaneous. And in order to make sure you believe me, I'm going to go into my chore log. This is my widget system, and here is my chore log. Okay, so this is telling me all the chores I have to do soon. Obviously, just a lot of standard stuff. And for example, if I go in here and make an update, here is an update, and I save that, that is instantaneously available. I don't have to wait at all for that. That is already there. So now as I'm interacting with this thing, I am getting instantaneous updates. See how that's updated? And now I just did a refresh to prove to you that it actually did stick. So I changed the name of that chore, and you can see that that update stuck. Let's try the frequency just to do another example here and refresh that. Okay, and I go in there and you see it's still, that update has stuck. So the point is that once you get the data in your browser, all of the subsequent interactions are very, very fast. Okay. What are some of the limitations? Well, there's two limitations that come directly from the way the architecture works. The first one is that you can't have multiple users editing at the same time. So if someone else was trying to make updates to my chore log, that would cause problems. And also the database size has to be modest. Now, this word modest should be properly interpreted. For any kind of life logging, productivity application, the data sizes you're going to be dealing with are very reasonable, right? So let's say I have a task list and I do 10 tasks per day. It's pretty productive. That would mean, of course, 3,650 records per year. If I use it for 10 years, maybe I have 40,000 records. 40,000 records is not a problem. It's only going to be a problem when you start getting into millions and millions of records. So you can see that these limitations are not at all important or relevant for individual web apps or small group web apps, right? You don't have that much data and there's not that many users editing the data. So this just doesn't, these limitations just don't have serious negative impacts. And that simplification, this streamlined way of building web apps, makes it very easy for me to host all different types of widgets on a single server. So I have a widget server and it hosts these widgets. Basically what it does is send the SQLite data to the browser and then process the database updates as they come back. It does some management and backup of the SQLite files. It does some authentication. It allows you to upload new widget code to the system. So it hosts the widgets for you. But the point is that a one simple server can handle any type of widget. And again, these constraints are totally okay to build all of these information management tools that I talked about before. You can do fitness logging, you can do diet tracking, all this stuff are totally doable within that framework. Very important point about widgets is that they're totally built on standard technologies. Mostly, if you want to develop widgets, you mostly need to know HTML, JavaScript. If you want to make it look nice, maybe you learn some CSS. You need to know a little tiny bit of SQLite, nothing complicated, just basically table definitions at the outset to build the widget tables. And I mention this because a lot of people already know JavaScript and HTML. Certainly a lot of people know enough JavaScript, HTML to build widgets. You don't need high-level knowledge of these things. And if you don't know these technologies, learning them is a good investment because they're not going anywhere. These are absolute bedrock pieces of the World Wide Web. They're not going to fall off the radar. They're not going to disappear in any kind of near-term time frame. They're going to be around for decades and decades. So if you invest in learning these tools, it's going to pay off. Now you always want to answer, how do I know this works? Because I've been building widgets and using them myself for years. When I started this project, I never thought that I was going to publicize or publish the widget system. It was just for my own use. I was just doing it for my own benefit so that I could be more organized, so I could be more disciplined. And over time, the system got simpler and simpler. I made it cleaner and more streamlined. And then eventually I thought to myself, okay, actually I can potentially take this to the world and let other people use it because now it's simple enough. This is my widget homepage. As you can see, I've got many different widgets here. They have all different types of aspects of my life. So there's things about fitness, about dieting. I'm learning Chinese. The widgets are helping me to study the Chinese characters. Lots and lots of things there. For early adopters, I will allow you to use the system for free accounts. I'll give you free tech support. And in fact, it's not listed here, but I will build widgets for you. For the earliest adopters, I will develop widgets that are customized for your use case to help people start getting a benefit from the system. This is not a scalable thing. I can't do this for everyone, but for the early adopters, I will be able to do that. Thank you very much for listening to my talk. Please let me know if you have any questions. Reach out by email. I would love to hear from you. Thank you very much.